Hello everyone, welcome to Vijay Codeset. So in today's video, we are going to see memory management in Spark. Let's move on to our computer screen and understand what exactly is the issue that we are facing over here and why do we need to manage the memory. So let's see what driver out of memory exception is. So for that, we need to import first Spark session, and then we have to create an app. So now we have our Spark instance. S- Let's create a data frame out of it. So our data frame is created. Let's do a df.show on it. We can see that we are getting the top 20 rows. Now let's do df.collect. Okay. So we can see that we have total of 100 rows. Yeah. So the 100 rows are getting fit into the memory of the driver. We have allocated 1 GB as the memory for our driver. Now let's increase the size of our data frame. Let's choose a very big number. I think this would be good enough. Let's run it. Let's first do df1.show. As you can see that when we are doing dot show, we are getting the output. But now just see when I run dot collect, magic is going to happen. And yeah, we are getting out of memory error. So let's move on to our drawing screen and understand why we are getting this error. As we have seen that when we like execute a very huge data frame, our driver gives an out of memory exception. So let's visualize why that's happening. And to understand it better, you must know like how the Spark architecture is and how it really works. I would highly recommend watching our Spark architecture video. I would link it in the description. Please watch that before watching this video for a better understanding. And also a quick note, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. Let's begin. So as we know that we have a driver and multiple executors. Let's say E1, E2, E3, and the driver. And in the driver, we have our JVM. Let's zoom this out over here. We have JVM and overhead memory. We will be having PySpark driver over here as well if like we are writing our code using PySpark. For now, let's assume that we are writing our code using Scala, so there is no PySpark driver over here. So what was happening in our code is when we were doing dot show, we weren't getting any error. But as soon as we did dot collect, we got out of memory exception, also known as OOM exception. So what exactly is it? Let's understand it with the help of data. Let's say our data is spread across these executors. Now, when we do dot show, what really happens is Spark will be taking randomly any of the partition from the executors and bring it into the memory of the driver. And it will show us the top 20 rows from that partition. And if you recollect, or you can like go back into the video and see when we were doing dot show, we were getting 20 rows. But when we do collect, what happens is it takes all of the partition and brings it into the memory of the driver. And if you rewind the video and see, when we were running dot collect on the first data frame, we were able to see the 100 rows. And these were the number of rows in our data frame. But when we increased the size of our data frame and then we ran dot collect, we got the out of memory exception. Because when Spark tried to bring all of these partitions into the memory, recollect that we had driver of 1 GB. So our driver size was of 1 GB. So when Spark tried to bring all of this partition within the memory of driver, uh, the data wasn't fitting into the 1 GB of driver. So Spark gave us the out of memory exception error. And due to that reason, our pipeline failed. And hence we get out of memory exception error whenever there is no space left in our driver to accommodate more data, but we were requesting for it. Now let's understand how the space is distributed within the driver. So when we allocate 1 GB of data to driver, or when we request driver of 1 GB, what happens is 10% of storage is reserved for overhead memory or 384 MB, whichever is greater. So in our case, when we asked our Spark application to give us the driver of 1 GB, what really happened is 10% of 1 GB is 100 MB. But since memory overhead requires at minimum of 384 MB, so 384 MB from our 1 GB got allocated for overhead memory, and rest of the data was allocated for our driver. So you must remember that if we have like 10 GB of data, in that case, 1 GB will be allocated to overhead memory and 9 GB for the JVM process. So we can see that there are two types of memory. One is arc driver dot memory. It is for JVM processes, and the other is spark dot driver dot memory overhead, and it is for rest of the stuff like for the container, maintaining the information about the container, running them, etc. So that job is done by the overhead memory present in our driver. So we have seen that why do we get out of memory exception in case of our driver. Now let's see some common reasons for out of memory exception. First common reason is when we are using dot collect. As we have seen in the practical stuff, when we did dot collect, we got out of memory exception because Spark tried to bring all of the data within the driver, and the storage for driver was very less than what we requested, and hence we got out of memory exception. The second reason is when we try to do broadcast join. We studied about broadcast join in our previous video. So if you haven't watched that video, I would recommend that consider watching that video. So now let's see what's the issue with broadcast join and why are we getting out of memory exception when we are doing broadcast join. Let's assume that we have two small data frames and one large data frame. Let's say df1, df2, df3. Now, what we are doing is, let's assume the size for df1 is 30 MB, df2 is 60 MB, and let's assume df3 is of 1 GB, and we have a driver of 1 GB, and we have few executors on which df3 is already present. df3 is already on our executors. Now we want to do broadcast join because df1 and df2 are way smaller than df3. So what we are planning to do is we will be sending df1 and df2 on this executors. So now we are broadcasting 90 MB of data into each of the executors. And we are doing this to avoid shuffling because shuffling is a costly operation, and when we do broadcast join we avoid shuffling. In this case there won't be any issue, but the issue would be when, let's say, you have like 10 dfs of small size, like you have till df10 and size for each df is 30 MB. Now what will happen is, what you're doing is 10 into 30, so it would be like 300 MB, and in this case the driver might get overwhelmed, and because driver also has to execute, like maintain the metadata and all stuff for executors, it may require some space, and since we have requested only 1 GB of driver, it may give us out of memory exception. It's not guaranteed that it will give, but it may give us in some time. And third reason for out of memory exception is when we overwhelm the overhead memory. Let's say we are using a lot of objects in our code, and due to that, the overhead memory, which is basically 10% of driver or 384 MB, this may get utilized quickly, and due to that reason we can also get out of memory exception. So these are the few reasons for out of memory exception in the driver, and we need to like manage it efficiently. In the next video we will be seeing how to manage the memory in executors and why do we get like out of memory in the executors. That's it for today. Thank you for watching.